What about divisiveness? Won't choice mean that people take off in all kinds of directions, like religious, ethnic, racial, class conflict?
Boy, that is really hard for me as an American to believe that people really feel that way. If we really feel that the only thing holding our society together is a state-enforced educational system, I think we've got major problems. What they're saying basically is if people had freedom, they'd become religious bigots, racial bigots, they would seek to separate themselves, but I don't find that true. I have found from my experience in talking to some, quote, real radical people, that they still want the best for their child. I don't care what political spectrum you're in, you want the best for your child, and you're going to seek it. Now what we're saying is you trust the people to seek the best for their child. They're going to overlook, and to prove this, in the Catholic schools and the Christian schools that have formed in the last 15 years, they are loaded with kids who are not in that particular faith. In other words, the parents just want the best education. They're not concerned with what the philosophy of the school is at that point. They're so desperate to get their kids out of the state-run schools where there's mayhem and anti-religion, they want to get them into a good school. Now, what we're saying is then, if we don't trust parents to be able to make these kinds of decisions, how in the world are we going to trust them to elect people that run these systems? Because you can't have it both ways. You're either going to trust them all the way, you're just going to trust them part of the way. It's like being a little bit pregnant, you know. Let's give you a little bit of freedom, you know. We'll give you freedom up to a point, but as far as training your child up and rearing him up and molding this little precious child into what he's going to view the world in, we want the state to control that. We're saying, no, that's not America. We've got to break this monopoly. That's where we come from.
You know, you mentioned religion several times. What about the First Amendment? Won't this mean that public money will be going to support Catholic schools?
Well, you know, Charlie, we were talking before the show. You and I both went under the GI Bill. I think this is a prime example that we can fall back on. When I got that voucher from the government, I could go to any school in the United States, whether it be Yeshiva University, Catholic University, a Baptist school, or an anti-Christian school. It doesn't matter, anti-religious school. All the government was saying is, look, you did your duty, we trust you, we're going to support you in your choice of where you want to get your education. Now, where people say is, oh, well, you can't trust children to make those choices, but what about the parents? They're the ones that make the decisions. I had 4 children, you had 8. We decided where they were going to go to school, up to a certain point. Now, when they get in the older grades, 10th, 11th, 12th grades, if they really don't like what we think is best for them, we're happy to work with them, go to another school. But it is the parent that makes these choices. And the parents, we have to trust them that they're going to make wise choices.
Bob, how would this voucher system work?
Well, again, basically, you know, the simplest method that we can think of is the vouchers. I'm not hung up on how it's worked. What we're looking for basically is the consciousness of the people has to be, we want to have freedom. We want schools to be controlled in the sense that parents and teachers run the show. Now, once you make that agreement, you and I and the rest of the people, this is really what we want. We want parents to be able to choose. The particular funding mechanism isn't the major thing. Now, we talk about vouchers because it's something we know about. I mean, we know vouchers can work. It could be some sort of a tax credit, but I have problems with that because poor people don't pay taxes in many cases. How do they get a tax credit? So you have to refund money, which is the same as a voucher. So what we're saying is if we can help people to see that the real solution to so many problems in our society is giving parents freedom to let their children get the kind of education they feel important, that'll be better for everyone. And it won't destroy the public schools. It'll make them different, certainly different than what they are now. They may be smaller. They may have different orientations than we feel that's appropriate right now, but that's up to the parents and the teachers to come to that conclusion.
Bob, what type of programs in the school are the ones that the people find most offensive?
Well, I think what really, you know, this was an evolutionary process. Nothing happened overnight to make us aware of what was really going on. I think the first inkling people had that they were having a problem is the kids started coming home talking about sex education. And then kids started coming home and saying things about what they believed because what the teacher taught them or their peer group had said. And the parents started wondering where they got it from, so they started going to the schools. And I remember in Kanawha, West Virginia, the parents got awfully upset with some of the books. They were called rednecks and, you know, crazy people, but really they were concerned about what was happening to their children. So this started in the 60s, and then in the 80s we've gotten into globalism. We're into multiculturalism now. People became set over new math, which was very, very destructive because it was never perfected and then put in the system. It was just planted on the system. So We now have sex education, death education. Kids are being taught how to use condoms. Just so many things that parents find not appropriate in an educational setting, particularly in a philosophy or environment, might say a religious setting, that they would want to have explained to their children. So that's what's upsetting parents. Beyond the test scores and the other things that are having a problem, it's the morality of the kids, I think, is really the impetus for most of the people in the reform movement that I'm aware of.
Bob, you're a man of great faith. What do you think is the real issue here?
Well, I guess I would have to say is that if you can't pursue truth, then you're going to come up with all kinds of noticing differences among people. For example, Will Durant, who was a Pulitzer Prize-winning historian, said that, now this is atheist, mind you, he's an atheist,
Right.
He said that in the study of history is nothing more than the study of those people whose influence extended beyond their lifetimes. He said, but you cannot begin to understand Western civilization unless you study the life of Christ. Now, he's not talking about him as a religious figure. He's simply saying that Christ impacted everything in our Western society, that all of our laws, our whole culture came through Christian influence. And I'm not, again, talking about being a Christian religion. So what we're having is the teachers have become moral eunuchs. So they can't teach, quote, any firm philosophy. Everything is now relative. If you have a view on killing and I differ, well, it's just a question of our viewpoints, which is really right or wrong. Whoever can debate, perhaps, and come up with a better argument makes that argument right. And a lot of people don't agree with that. They say they're moral absolutes. There are things we firmly believe in. There's some things that just absolutely don't do. In other words, you don't stick Jewish people in ovens in Buchenwald. That's totally wrong. It's not relative, right?
That's correct.
You don't take a crucifix and put it in urine and say it's an art exhibit. These things we just feel are wrong. They're offensive. And what in the world is the government getting involved in these kind of things? These are private matters. So parents should have the freedom to choose what kind of methodology they want for the child, what kind of philosophy pervades in that school. And so that's really what we're talking about.
I see. Well, Bob, do you have any final comments?
Yeah, Charlie, I want to tell you, I really have great faith in the American people. I think most people do, but it's harder and harder to recognize those who do. There's a spirit of caring and sharing in our society that's pervaded ever since we started off. The barn raising, people contributing to help a kid that needs a liver today, or any number of things. The Knights of Columbus, they're out to help people. The Rotary Clubs, the Lions Club, there's organizations all over the country. Private individuals out helping people on their own. And we're saying, let's tap into this kind of caring and sharing spirit where people really care about one another and put it into the schools. Why can't we have this, where parents really care, teachers who really care, and let them run the schools? Don't have bureaucrats and experts in some distant place who may have the credentials, but they don't have the personal involvement with that particular child. And that's what we're talking about. Let's get down to freedom for everyone.
That's very good. Well, Bob Marlowe, we want to thank you very much for a very, very enlightening evening and a very nice discussion on a subject that is very great importance to all of us. And, the primary purpose of marriage is the procreation and the education of children. And no matter how many schools we send our children to, we never give up that responsibility for those children. And it will be important that we do something about this program in the future. Now, this program has been brought to you by the Knights of Columbus, particularly Archbishop Michael J. Curley, of which I am a past faithful navigator, and also by St. John de Matha Council. I've been a past Grand Knight of Prince George's Council, 2809, and a former district deputy. And I think that we should sponsor more programs like this, and we would like the public to do something about it, join the movement. If you have any questions, get in touch with either us or the Knights of Columbus or Bob Marlowe. We thank you very much.